Hey everyone, we're back with another week of Find Your Film. This is for the week ending December 24th, 2021. Christmas Eve, Christmas time, happy holidays time. Happy holidays to Eric Holmes, aka Serendipity, and Bruce Perky, aka Serendipity. Eric Holmes, can you just really just lift the veil and explain why you guys have this Seren name added to your moniker? What are we going to be covering this week on Find Your Film?
Greg, I really can't explain it. It's just kind of serendipitous, I guess.
Serendipitous. Anything you want to add to that, Bruce? He said it's serendipitous.
Well, we just walked out of elevators at the same time and looked at each other, and it was our names. I mean, it was meant to be.
Okay, a little bit. So maybe there might be a little bit of serendipity with this episode. We're going to actually get into that probably later. Towards the end of this episode, Serendipity should be something interesting to talk about. Our big three movies that we're going to be featuring this week are this foreign film called Drive My Car, which we've all seen. Don't Look Up, a Netflix film which is coming out this Friday. It was released in select theaters last week. Eric Holmes, if you guys remember from last episode, Eric, you actually paid good money to see this in the theater. And do you remember what rating you gave this movie?
I believe we gave it 5 stars.
You called it a banger.
I would pay good money again.
And you would pay, very good money again. Eric Holmes throws the first, I don't even know how to say it, salve out there or something. He's actually getting his shields ready for the sharp knives that Bruce Perky and I have. Who knows? Maybe Bruce and I really loved Don't Look Up as much as Eric Holmes did. So I'm ready. We're ready to air. Whatever we're going to say about Don't Look Up, we're just listen to Eric's advice on to see Don't Look Up as well, because he said it's also very hilarious. So he's going to expound on that a little bit. Last but not least, definitely not least, is this film called The Power of the Dog, which is currently streaming on Netflix. It's winning all the awards from critic circles, and I think it's Bruce Perky's all-time favorite movie. Bruce, was I wrong? I'm not very good at facts.
Yeah, you were wrong. You were supposed to say last but least.
Okay. Thank you for the dry wit and the meanness. You're not. Why, you don't like dogs, Bruce? Is that why you don't like the power of dogs? Is that why? Huh?
I don't like them being more powerful than me. I like to beat them to within an inch of their lives. Let them whine and whimper. My dog will tell you it's true.
You evil, mean man.
So evil. I kick him.
Well, here's the good news. Yeah, both Bruce and I, we saw this movie a couple weeks ago. Eric Holmes is doing a rewind catch-up on The Power of the Dog. We finally get to talk about The Power of the Dog. So those are our main three movies, and then Eric and Bruce will have some recommendations. Before we close out I guess we're closing out the year next week. But for Christmas, Eric Holmes, is this a holiday that you're excited? What happens? Do you actually, on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, do you watch a lot of movies with your family, Christmas themed, or what?
Usually on Christmas Eve, we're up pretty late, wrapping last minute gifts, and then Christmas Day rolls around, and by the time I wander downstairs, the presents are already open. So I wander back upstairs, pass back out, and then you guys need me, you know where I'm at. So basically, Christmas is just recovery day for me.
Oh, that's a recovery. Is Christmas a recovery day for you, Bruce? How is it with your family on a Christmas? Are you guys festive on that day?
Christmas Eve, we make cookies usually on Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, usually the TV's on. Usually it's like either it's a bunch of Harry Potter movies or a bunch of superhero movies just kind of on in the background playing, and then I'm cooking a good chunk of the day. And
what are you usually cooking? What are you cooking this year? How about that? What are you cooking this year?
This year we've got ham, prime rib, potatoes, garlic bread, green beans, wine.
Wine. What kind? Oh, nice.
Why not?
Wine not. Wine not. Okay, that's pretty festive. Are you good? So Harry Potter and MCU theme movies, Bruce? Is that your kind of
whatever the kids pick? They throw it up there, and it's just like it's free reign. They can just let it run all day, whatever they want to have on. So
yeah, all right, cool, very very cool. That's our Christmas. I don't do anything for Christmas. I just watch movies on Netflix, and maybe I'll just watch The Power of the Dog again. Well, let's not start with The Power of the Dog, and let's not start with Don't Look Up. Let's start off with this film, Drive My Car. It's directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. It has been winning awards. It was winner of the Best Feature Film and Best Screenplay at the Asia Pacific Screen Awards. It's a shoo-in to receive an Oscar nomination for Best International Film. Who knows? It might get a Best a Best Film nomination as well. I don't know if it was on the short list. I'll have to check. But it opened in LA on December 3rd for a limited Oscar run, and it opened in New York last month on November 24th. But it'll probably be reaching more theaters. We're assuming January or February. So that's Drive My Car. This is, spoiler alert, this is my number 2 film. No, not my number 1 film of the year. I was going to say The Power of the Dog was my number 1 film. Drive My Car supplanted it. Very simple story. Yusuke Katuko is he's a Japanese actor and stage director. He loves his car. I believe the car is a Saab. The movie is 3 freaking hours. A lot of the movie has him in his car. He's driving a lot. A big portion of the movie centers on his relationship with his wife, and they have a very sexually charged relationship. It's also very creatively charged. I'm not going to get into the specifics why sex and creativity is a big part of their connection. You're going to let that mystery unfold yourself. And also, I guess halfway through the narrative, he actually befriends and gets to know this woman named Misaki Watari. And Misaki Watari is played by Toko Miura. And Misaki, she's his driver. She becomes his driver towards the second half of the narrative. The story takes place in 2 time frames. It's 3 hours long. 3 hours is a big barrier to entry for most people, including myself. But ultimately, it might not be for many cinephiles who want to just see what is all this hype behind Drive My Car. Why is it winning all the awards? It's getting a ton of acclaim, and who knows, it'll be one of the top films as far as come Oscar time. Let's start with you, Eric Holmes. What did you think of Drive My Car? Was 3 hours too long, or did you get immersed in the story of the stage director and actor named Yusuke Katuko?
It did feel really long to me, but I think that's kind of the tone it was going for. This is one of those movies you're either in for it or you're not. A lot of it reminded me of like was it Schenectady, New York, or Synecdoche, New York?
Schenectady.
Okay. It's spelled Synecdoche, but I guess it's
Schenectady. Or Schenectady, yeah.
I think you're right.
Hoffman, yeah.
But it reminded me of that, where it was most of the movie is this guy basically directing a play or putting together a play based on his life, sort of on his life, and sort of on stories that his. Do we say that?
Well, the play is based on Uncle Vanya by Chekhov, so it's a very renowned play, and it's told in different. The way the stage director frames it, and this is not giving away too much, but he doesn't have everyone speak Japanese. It's an international cast in the production of Uncle Vanya, and he's the stage director. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, I kind of read it as kind of based on his life a little bit. At least that's what it felt like to me.
Oh, you mean the play? The play?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're sort of that's right. That's right in the ballpark. It does figure into that, and we'll get to that in a second.
I don't know what I can talk about this movie.
Well, look, why don't you
and what happened?
Why don't you talk about it, and then if it's too much of a spoiler, we'll cut it or we'll just paste it back on the end. By the way, listeners, for this episode, we're going to do a quick spoiler recap regarding Drive My Car. We're going to talk about the last scene of the movie, and this is for obviously some of the select people who've been able to see this 179-minute film. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah. So this guy and this girl, I believe they're married, the very least dating. And whenever they have sex, it inspires the lady friend to get creative and start telling stories and start acting out the stories, which is kind of weird, but I'd be down with it. I didn't know that was one of my fetishes, but here we are.
Bruce, I think that's not a spoiler at all, because that's a premise of the movie. Bruce, you agree, or do you think that's a little bit of a spoiler?
No, that's not the spoiler I was talking about. That something happens to her, and then we'll just say there's some things going on that kind of throws a rift in their relationship, but it's only on his end. She doesn't know. And then, it kind of mostly focuses on him through a good portion of the movie. Weird thing about this, though, is like they don't even play the opening titles until like 45 minutes into the movie, which might be the longest cold open of any movie I've ever seen.
Probably right, yeah.
There's a lot of character internal stuff going on in this. Stuff that you might find in a book. You don't often see this sort of thing in movies, because it's hard to bring that across in a movie. I think this did it pretty well. But again, if you're not on board with this movie, I don't think you're going to get that out of it. Overall, this was a pretty interesting movie. And again, it's really long, but it kind of it almost feels like it needed to be that long, even though there were parts of it where I'm like, okay, come on, I get it, let's get to the point. But you almost need that time to kind of sit and reflect on certain areas. Yeah, that's.
Would you recommend this as a mild recommend? What kind of stars would you?
That's real tough. I think it's a good movie. I don't know that I'd recommend it because I don't.
So for you,
there's like certain people I would recommend this to,
right?
And then certain people I'm like, no, this is not your movie,
right? Exactly.
So
I mean, what's your personal rating?
I'd probably give this maybe about 3-star.
A 3-star film, mild recommend.
Yeah.
Bruce, 3-star film from Eric Holmes. He felt the 3 hours. He felt the length. Did you feel the 3-hour length? And was it a big barrier for you as well?
I felt the 3 hours, but I feel like the 3 hours was earned. I think that, and I think Eric sounds like he does too to some degree, even if it maybe didn't hit him. Yeah. But it sounds like he thought it was actually earned in the story too. Like we said, 45-minute cold open. I mean, that's like the prologue almost. And the reason that, those credits fall in at the 40-minute mark is basically to say, okay, now we're ready to start the story. And you're like, what? Okay, I guess we're starting the story now. I was concerned for a while, like how this is going to go. But once I fell into the rhythm of it, it really worked for me. I think that if this is for people who like I think Eric had a really good idea there too. People who like the experience of a novel, the experience of a really in-depth play or a character piece where you really get to sit with the characters, so that by the time you get to the third act, and honestly the third act of this movie is like several things happening in this final hour. I think the final hour will really work for people if they've invested that time and it's kind of their vibe. Because to me, I mean, I think there's at least 3, if not more, super cathartic scenes in the final hour that I think pay off. And how you have some movies where you say, it has too many endings. I don't think this does. I think it lets our characters have various levels of closure on some of the threads that we've opened up as the movie goes on, so that by the time you get to the end, I think it's a very satisfying ending. So I appreciated that. I appreciated the length, I would say, by the time I got to the end of it a lot.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is definitely a 5-star film for me. And I guess without giving away too much, they're putting on a production of Uncle Vanya. Uncle Vanya, the play by Chekhov, it has been a passion for Yusuke for most of his life. He has a connection with that play to his wife as well. And the idea behind Uncle Vanya, this is not a spoiler, about how no matter what we go through in our lives with our tragedies and our jealousies, infidelities, sex and love, everything that makes up our days, good and bad, what we're going to have to do is, if we want to live in this world, we're just going to have to move forward, good or bad. And that's what drive my car is. He's a man who's, whatever's happening, he has to go onto his car and he has to drive to the next destination and keep on moving forward. If he stops that sob and decides to just pull off the road and give up on his life, that's the end of his story, right? The whole idea about drive my car is how we continue to move forward with our lives possibly with the aid of art being a perpetual force in how we like to define our existence. A lot of the people in Drive My Car, they speak different languages. They can't. A person communicates via sign language. Another person is Korean. And there's some people who are multilingual. But even with these language barriers, the way they communicate with each other is through the play and the words of Chekhov and Uncle Vanya and the themes. So a lot of what this movie has to say is about how we move on with our various tragedies in life, and how art is a driving force is pretty much a life force. I found this to be absolutely cathartic, absolutely moving, really deep, and it's a film that upon watching it maybe another time, 3 hours went by like a drop of water for me. I think this is a masterwork from the filmmaker. And yeah, 5 stars for me, 3 stars for Eric. Bruce, what's yours?
I want to add a little thing to that. It is 5 stars for me as well. This is a 5-star movie. I would add slightly to the idea you're talking about moving forward and getting along. I think the communication piece in here is key. And I think a big part, to me, what works in this story is that you can't move on. until you really learn to listen and communicate. Because there's a ton in this movie about communicating and communicating in ways that aren't necessarily the standard way that you would communicate. So multiple times in this story, you have characters that have to rediscover an experience they had or re-understand an experience they have by actually listening to another person's point of view or another perspective or another version of a story they thought they knew. So I think that's a big piece of this movie, is how we have to all of a sudden you have to reframe your expectation on the way you experience the world to really like let yourself go and be able to take another step. I don't know if that makes sense exactly until you see the movie.
Makes a lot of sense. And on a very superficial level, when you're learning someone else's language, that might seem like a very arbitrary, oh, cool, you like language, you like the culture. But it's all, like you said, it's all about listening and taking something else in, no matter what, So there's different levels of communication. I loved how eventually, people in this movie strive to, no matter what the language barrier is, they strive to communicate with each other and build that connection. And that connection doesn't happen overnight, Bruce.
That and also it's like we tend to think we know how things are going to be and how things should be, and this movie's all about like taking a step outside of yourself in that way and actually listening and watching another person's point of view and not just listening to it but understanding it. A perfect example, this is an example that won't spoil anything. There's a moment where he tells his new-ish driver at this point, he says, just take me somewhere you like. So you think that she's gonna take him to, like, I don't know, an overlook, a beautiful mountain, a park. She takes him to this giant, like, incinerator of trash in the middle of city. And that moment, that scene, it's not a moment, it probably is a 15 to 20 minute scene. That scene travels a line that is very unexpected and goes to a connection to them that they haven't had before that. But that's a perfect example of where your expectation is overturned and you have to listen to somebody else and actually understand what they're trying to get to you. I think it's pretty profound.
It is pretty profound. This is to Eric's point, though, about this, and you echo this as well, Bruce, the novel aspect of Drive My Car. There will be a barrier of entry if you, as a viewer, it's pretty dense. The thing is, the story is pretty dense, and there are long pauses, and there are times when it may feel like a slog for you. But to that point, there are moments of huge exposition dumps in this movie. The reason why these exposition dumps to me work like a hard-hitting action sequence is because you end up really caring about these characters. So when they start on their monologues and unfolding their various stories, you are so invested in that moment and learning about these people. And I think that's what the whole point of Drive My Car is, just try to learn about other people. And usually in lesser narratives, when these exposition dumps happen, you don't care. You go, just put me on to the next scene. Show, don't tell. No, this is a version of where the exposition is framed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. They're framed as action sequences. They're really beautiful spectacles. So yeah, masterwork. Glad, Bruce, that you liked it. 5 stars for you. Oh, I was surprised. By the way, Bruce Perky is doing a top 31 on our Cinematics Facebook group page, and he hasn't mentioned Drive yet. So I don't know. Hopefully that Drive will come up pretty soon on your top 10 list, right? What number are you on right now?
I'm on 11, and 10 will be tomorrow. So the top 10 starts tomorrow.
Okay, very, very good. And I believe Bruce's number 10, as is Eric's number 10, will be Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn movie that is worth watching. That I think I was kind of mixed on Bad Luck Banging or Looney Porn, but Eric Holmes and Bruce, they convinced me it's one of the best films of the year. Okay, Eric. Okay, Bruce. You guys.
I got a quick question about this because I'm not familiar with really anything of Chekhov except his gun.
Neither have I. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay, I didn't know if you guys were familiar with that or if that would have helped or had any value added. Maybe to get more deep insight into what the movie's going for.
I think so. I think knowing Chekhov, Bruce, you agree? Knowing Chekhov would have really brought a lot of value to it, maybe?
I don't know the play. I think I'm guessing that it probably gives you a lot of kind of built-in context, but I don't think you need to know it to actually enjoy this. If you're into the vibe of it, is not required.
Right, because there's the scenes in Vanya continue to play like waves throughout this narrative. So by the time those final waves come in, they really come crashing down, hopefully in a good way. We're not going to spoil that, but no, actually this movie actually made me want to learn about Uncle Vanya and Chekhov's gun, like you said, that narrative plot device. But yeah, so But I think obviously the more you know, the better for Drive My Car, especially with all the histories. But we're going to talk about the final scene of Drive My Car towards the end after our show is done. A little bit of a spoiler on that film. Drive My Car, I don't know, maybe you can find it. It's playing in LA in select theaters and probably some of the major markets. But if Drive My Car gets to you, huge recommendation by me and Bruce, 5 stars each. Eric Holmes, 3 stars, mild recommend for you. Now, let us go for a movie that is not a mild recommend. Don't Look Up. Netflix on Friday. Eric Holmes saw it, paid honest, hard-earned money to watch Don't Look Up. Movie about a comet. It's gonna crash into Earth in about 6 to 7 months. It's discovered by a bunch of what are they called? 2 astronomers. One of them is the big boss, played by Leo DiCaprio. The other person is played by Jennifer Lawrence. Leo DiCaprio is a very nerdy, very scholarly science and math guy, and Jennifer Lawrence is more of a punk rock, but very, very smart, just very smart punk rockish kind of assistant girl. DiCaprio's character serves as her mentor. She discovers the comet, and they're trying to warn everybody, the mass media, most importantly the government, the people at large, that there's a comet. It's gonna hit 6-7 months. Everyone's going to die. That is a premise of Don't Look Up. And Eric, can you, before me and Bruce launch into this, can you talk about what, again, Don't Look Up, it's a 5-star banger. What makes it 5 stars for you?
Everyone's gonna die and no one cares. And I just saw this as a looking into the mirror of society, and it's it's not subtle at all. It's hey, humanity as a whole is fucking up, and here's how we're fucking up. I think a lot of people can see themselves in it and maybe point out, oh yeah, that's where they're fucking up, and that's where they're fucking up. And what I appreciate about this movie is it didn't hold back on anybody. It seemed it kind of blamed everybody, which seems like a cop out, and maybe it is. But we're all fuck ups. We all have shit that we need to get together, fix, and it was also funny. Mostly dark humor, because someone would do something completely stupid, and I'm just like, oh, of course he would do that. And I never mentioned this last time, but Meryl Streep,
as a president,
is she really that self-aware, or does she have no idea the character that she's playing?
Meryl Streep is smarter than some entire continents, so she's. I'm assuming she knows what's going. She's amazing. In this
I'm not quite sure, because
really?
It seemed like her character was making fun of her, like the actual Meryl Streep itself at times. But
interesting. So Meryl Streep is the president. Her son is played by Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill also, as the son, is actually the chief of staff. I think that's supposed to be a joke about nepotism. As far as Adam McKay. Adam McKay, by the way, directs this movie. Adam McKay of Anchorman, and he also writes a screenplay. Adam McKay also directed the amazing film that I thought was very, very funny, also a satire, called The Big Short. All-star cast: Ariana Grande, Kid Cudi, Timothy Chalamet, Kate Blanchett. She plays a sort of a Fox News type reporter. She was very, very funny in this. Also Tyler Perry, who plays her co-anchor. He's another reporter. Just a lot of stars. It's a very long movie. It feels like a 2.5-hour film, 2.5-hour movie. I'm going to look at the running time right now. Satire, all-star cast, Comet, has a big event film in a way. Bruce, does this movie hit the mark for you like it did Eric?
It doesn't, unfortunately. I will say, I'll say what I liked about it. I surprisingly really liked Timothy Chalamet when he came in as this kind of street doofus guy that kind of tags along, and I wasn't expecting that guy to pop in. I wasn't expecting that to be Timothy Chalamet, so I was happy to see that he can do other things. So that was cool.
How about a brief shout out to Melanie Linsky, national treasure Melanie Linsky,
yes,
playing the wife of Leo DiCaprio.
Yep.
She is great in whatever she's in as well.
The only person in the movie that wasn't a piece of shit.
Yeah, her and what's
point.
his name? The other the NASA guy. I forget his name. He was good too.
Oh, Rob Morgan? No,
yes, Rob Morgan.
Yeah. Very good.
I really liked, there's a little bit in here where the general keeps trying to sell them chips, even though they don't have to be sold chips in the White House. I like that little bit a lot. That was one of the jokes that worked. Maybe the joke that worked for me. And I really liked the Steve Jobs-ish character because he was so odd and strange. And I really
Played by Mark Rylance.
Yeah, by Mark Rylance. I like the take of that. I might have been overplayed a little bit for me, but I like that as well. Oh, and the final, I'm not going to say what happens in the final.
By the way, before you go, do you think the snacks joke was funny the first time and the second time, but the third and fourth time maybe not?
Yeah, it wore thin on me after a while. His
But
character
then the
was...
seventh and the eighth time it got funny again. Did that
But,
funny, not funny, and now it's funny again.
This and I really liked there's some bunch of characters. I'm not going to say what happens. There's a bunch of characters that come together in a certain way towards the end. I really enjoyed that scene. I kind of wish there would have been a little more of that in this movie. The biggest problem I had with the movie is it was too safe, in my opinion. This movie was just, it was all the jokes, all the characters, not all the jokes, but most of the jokes, most of the characters, most of the takes were all super obvious to me. They were like, this is all stuff we know. It's not telling me in a new way or telling me in a different way. I wanted it to be either 10 times more absurd or 10 times more dark or something. It was just, to me, I was just like, yeah, okay, it's a mirror, but I've looked in the mirror a lot of times, so it's not really, it's not telling me anything I haven't already seen him before. Maybe someone, it will tell him a lot. As I watched it, I kept thinking, I mean, the obvious things to compare it to would be like Doctor Strangelove or Network. And
Are there lines like "There's no fighting in the war room" in this movie,
Yeah.
Bruce? Are there lines like, or any memorable lines like that?
Not really for me. I mean, and the tone, it's all about tone, right? So it works, like it really works for Eric. It really didn't work for me. And the tone was just a tick or two off for some reason. Another example is Mars Attacks. Mars Attacks is this movie, but in a 10 times more entertaining way. I felt the time in this so much compared to our 3-hour movie we just talked about, because this movie was, it had an idea, it stated the idea, it presented the idea, and within 30 minutes I'm like, okay, I get it, now what? And now what was pretty much nothing. And to me, some of the stuff was really almost painfully bad, like the whole thing with the astronaut that was going to go up, played by Ron Perlman.
That part was awesome.
That part just was painful to me. This stuff was just it was painful. It was like bad Saturday Night Live skits to me, and a lot of it. I hated Jonah Hill. It did not. But it's comedy,
My
right?
goodness.
Comedy is
Kate
taste.
Blanchett. Kate Blanchett. How about her as the self-serving anchor?
No, it was
Yeah.
fine. I mean, it was all bland. That's the thing. This was too safe. This should have been way harder core or way more subtle, but it was right in the middle of the road as far as I was concerned. Part of it was so many stars. I think that doesn't help either. It's all these stars just makes it kind of like this vanity project kind of. And the other thing I kept thinking about, and I'll stop talking. The other thing I kept thinking about was, as I was watching this, to make a 70-something million dollar movie with all of these stars undercuts absolutely the point they're trying to make. Because it's like you are ironically not knowing that you're making a absolute statement about what you are presenting on the screen, which is this giant, overexpensive, overindulgent, star-ridden vehicle that's trying to criticize exactly what it's talking about. So it was like its own self. No.
So you're saying basically spending money by hubris with your own hubris money is hubris.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
I need to push back on a couple things. One,
yes. Okay.
The fact that it's completely beats you over the head, and it does the mirror, and I know that you get it. The thing is, like, this is the stuff that, like, it's a comedy version, but this is the stuff that goes around us all the time, and no one does anything about it. Everyone seems blind to the obvious stuff, and then when the movie heightens it a little bit, it's like, well, this is completely obvious. Well, motherfucker, you don't seem to pay attention when it's actually happening. I'm not talking to you, motherfucker.
No, I understand.
but it's like, if humanity would be able to see this on their own, but I don't think they can. They need, it's almost like the movie needs to be this obvious, because you look at the world around you, it's completely obvious, but no one sees it. And so,
but I honestly don't know.
It's almost like you have to beat them over the head and then keep beating them over the head. It's like, you see it yet? You see it yet? Oh, it's too obvious. And it's like, well, you didn't get it the first 30,000 times we ran this by you.
But remember,
it's a solid rebuttal.
There's a scene where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is getting into it, and he's in the chat rooms, right? And he's trying to get the best burn and all that stuff, right? And because he's gone to that point with the trolls, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, But this movie is going to play to whatever side is being criticized, which you're criticizing both sides. I get that. It's going to play the same way. They're going to be like, well, you're just yelling at me and I'm not going to listen to you. I mean, I don't know how you actually make this movie work now. I don't know how you make it work. I mean, literally, you would have to put people in a room.
That's a 5-star film.
You would have to put people into the theater. You would have to lock the theater. You'd have to have people walk into the theater with guns and put guns to every member of the audience's head and say, do you get it? And start killing people.
You know what?
Wow.
You have a point.
Bruce,
this is still 5 stars for me, but you absolutely have a point. As obvious as this movie is, you're right. People are going to latch on to them and then just completely ignore the mirror part that reflects themselves.
Yeah, and they'll all be able to make that stupid argument of like, well, every side is shitty, so nothing matters. It's like either nothing matters or everything equally matters. Yeah. That's the same statement, right? If you say everything is equally bad, it's the same as saying nothing is bad. You have to make an opinion at some point.
Bruce, put down the baseball bat, okay? 5
but
stars
I gave
for
this
you?
2.5 stars.
Oh, 2.5. 2.5 stars. Okay, so
because it's okay.
After all of that, you basically went Robert De Niro, Al Capone on the dinner guest on The Untouchables, and you ended up giving this movie 2.5 stars.
Fuck this movie and its ass. 3.5 stars.
That is so amazing. You really went in on this movie. I was actually a little bit kinder to this film. Let me tell you something, okay? Yeah, Don't Look Up. It is, yes, Bruce, you're going to say something.
Okay, a last thing. The reason it's a bland
about it. Have to be the last thing. We can keep talking about this. I'm good with it.
Okay. The reason I give it 2.5 stars is it's a bland movie, but this movie is important. Like what this movie is trying to say is important. It can't be bland. It needs to be as fucking in your face as Titan is, but even more so, right? I mean,
Fair.
it has to take a stance, and it has to take the stance, and it has to drive it so far into the ground that you either hate it or you love it. But you can't be like me where I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. 2.5 stars is the most damning grade I can give it.
See, I disagree with that though, because I think it does, I think it will piss people off, and I think other people they'll see something in it. It blames.
No, you're right. It will some. That's me.
I mean, I saw this. The thesis of this movie is humanity is fucked. We're all fucked.
Oh yeah,
and we're all fucked, not because of you, not because of me, but because all of us got us to this position we're at. And unless we start wising up and figuring out, hey, there's a problem, let's figure out where our individual problems lie and start fixing things, we're going to be destroyed by a comet. And if we can't figure that out, maybe we deserve to get hit by that comet.
Right, but how does this movie get people off that pot?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what I said. You got to lock them in a room and start filling with water. I mean, that's what you got to do.
I mean, that's where I absolutely do agree with you. It really hurts me to say that.
No, but you know what?
But again, that goes to the whole point of what this movie is, and that's kind of the depressing thing about the movie is like, wow, we all really suck, and that comment's gonna hit all of us, and fuck it. I guess we get what we deserve.
It almost should have stopped halfway through and just had the film run out of the projector, and you should have heard a voice in the background saying, "Fuck it, there's no point," and just end.
That would have been awesome. Oh my god, that would have been awesome. I mean, in a way, they kind of did a little bit.
A little bit. So I'm sorry, Greg. I'll stop now.
No worries. Don't Look Up. 2.5 stars for Bruce. There's parts of Don't Look Up that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the performances by Rob Morgan and Melanie Linsky. They should have been in the movie a little bit more, but I don't know. This is a movie that's 2 hours and 25 minutes. How do you give them screen time and leave screen time away from Leonardo DiCaprio or Jennifer Lawrence, the stars of the movie? There are some.
Jennifer Lawrence could have been away.
Jennifer. No, I actually like Jennifer Lawrence's character at points, but the characters to me, and this goes to Eric and Bruce, they're both saying this is not a very subtle film. Eric was saying that's the method to the madness of Adam McKay. That's one side of the coin, and that's valid. But I wanted to be entertained by this movie. I wanted to laugh. That snack joke, I laughed the first time, and then the second, third, fourth time, I did not laugh because they went to the well too much. The main characters are ciphers. Things are happening. The main star of this movie is the comet, okay, which is fine. But when you build characters who are just so arch and so paper thin, at least make them really funny and jokes and the funny stuff. I laughed maybe a couple of times. It didn't hit me. 2 hours and 25 minutes. This felt like a 5 hour film to me. So to be honest, I'm giving this movie 2 stars. This movie was just really.
I gave it 2
Don't Look Up has been retitled for me. I'm just gonna listeners. A big part of what we're gonna do for Find Your Film. Thank you Netflix for providing us with the screeners. We love a lot of your movies on a per week basis. Thank you for the team over Netflix. But for me, the good thing is Eric Holmes. So glad that he loves this movie. Gives it 5 stars. Bruce gives it 2.5 stars. I'm giving it a generous 2 stars. I'm gonna retitle this movie Don't Look, as in listeners. Don't look at this movie. Maybe it's look. I'm gonna tell you one thing about life. Okay, homelessness is bad. Climate change sucks. People getting killed sucks. Tragedy, people die. That's hurtful and it's wrong. But there's a way to say it within a satire form. You know, the media and corporations are corrupt. We have network. Atomic bomb's not good, even with Slim Pickens on it. That's why we have Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Now, if we're going to compare Adam McKay to Stanley Kubrick or Paddy Chayefsky or Sidney Lumet, I think that's a fair comparison. If you're going to give this movie $70 to $100 million movie, and you're going to take a big friggin' swing on society, and you want to make a point about it in a satire version, yeah, I'll put your feet to the. You're talking about putting people's feet to the fire. I'm going to put you, Adam McKay, to the fire. If you're going to take a big swing, make sure you hit this one out of the park, or in my case, at least a double. This was a ground single that almost ground single towards the right side of the baseline. It just did not completely. I mean, it dribbled away. Might have been a foul ball. I don't even know why I give this movie 2 stars. Oh yeah, the reason why is I loved watching the actors in the movie. I liked them. I liked watching Ariana Grande sing and Kid Cudi. I loved them together. Oh, wait, they sang the whole song. That just cut 4 minutes out of my life for them to sing the song. I could have watched the music video instead. But I loved watching Cate Blanchett as the sexy, intelligent co-anchor who's a little bit of a sociopath. But she wasn't given enough really interesting lines or a nice arc. This movie should have been workshop. Eric, on a weekly basis, I mean, he likes to go to writers' workshops. I think Adam McKay should, he knows a lot of people he could have called up on his. I don't know if they have Rolodex
I want
anymore.
to give Eric a hug right now.
He should have called a bunch of people, maybe done some kind of seance for Paddy Chayefsky in the spirit, and actually figure out how to actually pen a really decent screenplay, because this would have made Don't Look Up a much better film. Overall, to me, I'm not even going to get it. I'm not even going to recommend this movie. This is a 2-star film, but in all fairness, I would err on the side of Bruce Perky's. Hey, it's 2.5 stars. It's bland. At least it's watchable, and then maybe upscale it to Eric, who calls this. It's pretty much a 5-star banger for Eric. So put those also into your hat. Maybe Don't Look Up will work for you. And I'm going to defend Eric one more time. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics, which I am one, gave it 55%. The audience members, cinephiles, are rating this 77%. So Eric Holmes, you have the final say on this film. It has a 77% rating. So you're saying probably you might have a good point. Like this, populace-wise, this might resonate a lot more.
Yeah, I don't think critics liked Idiocracy when that came out. So what's the next movie we're talking about?
Very good. Okay, fair. Idiocracy. Yes, I gave.
Well, we'll come back to this in 15 years, and we'll see who's right.
No one's in movie reviews. No one's right.
To your guys' point, I see where you're coming from. I don't know. I mean,
it's comedy.
Comedy
is taste.
You guys need to watch the movie with me. You need to get
I
together
want
and
to.
watch
Let's
it together so I can hold you and go, Bruce, you see that? I told you, Ron Perlman's hilarious in this.
You might be right. Give me a couple beers. Let's hang out. We'll do it.
I would rather see a 2-hour, 25-minute movie called Don't Look Up, and the only thing is, it's Melanie Linsky and Rob Morgan at her dinner table, just talking or reading names off the phone book. I don't even know if they have phone books anymore. They are arresting actors, and I love watching them in anything, and that's probably why this movie gets at least 2 stars. I love both of them.
They did kind of have that scene.
They kind of did have that scene, right? Yeah. A little bit, yeah. And I think it goes to Bruce's point.
Without getting into that was probably the only nice scene in the whole movie. Like, that's nice.
It's like
this. Because like the whole movie, they're just shitting on humanity, but then there's this one little nugget where it's like, you're having a nice little moment. We'll give you that before.
Bonfire of the Vanities, directed by Brian De Palma, stars Melanie Griffith, Tom Hanks, Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, just Rita Wilson, just a whole bunch of really amazing actors. Loved watching them. It was directed by my favorite filmmaker. All throughout the movie, I'm thinking, De Palma got this whole movie wrong about this, just the privileged upper class and how justice is misapplied at times. Yeah, the Wolf's novel is completely not in the same spirit. And even De Palma said he whiffed on Bonfire of the Vanities. It was just watching really pretty, interesting, charming people act out a very charmless and uninteresting screenplay with Bonfire of the Vanities. Hate to say that as a De Palma fan. I felt that same way regarding Don't Look Up. Again, 5 stars from Eric Holmes. Banger, hilarious. He said, so listen to Eric. Bruce, 2.5 stars. He said it was not so much, but bland, you're saying, and me, 2 stars. And I can't believe I actually went really mean on Don't Look Up. We love Netflix, by the way. You want to say something nice about Netflix, Bruce? Smile. Thank you, Netflix.
I like the sound it makes when it comes up and goes brrring, or whatever that
sounds.
Really
Eric, you want to say something nice about this movie one more time so we can just...
I love you guys so much.
I'm gonna cut that for Eric to say I love Netflix so much. We love Netflix so much. So, anyways, we'd love to hear what you guys think about this movie. Are you on the side of Eric, Bruce, or me? We'd love to hear what you think of Don't Look Up. Again, Friday, December 24th, streaming on Netflix. Also streaming on Netflix is probably, unless if Drive My Car wasn't released, would have been my favorite film of the year. Maybe my favorite film of all freaking time. The Power of the Dog. Why are you giving me that look, Bruce Perky? I know you. This is
your favorite film of all time, and you've already dropped it. It took you like a month.
It took me like a month. Look, you know what? The Power of the Dog, we don't need to get into the plot line. It's, set in what Montana or Wyoming, and it's set in Americana film. Sort of a cowboy film in a way, and set in a ranch. The brothers on the ranch are played by Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons. Jesse Plemons, he ends up marrying a woman with a kid, and that is not it's kind of frowned upon by Benedict Cumberbatch, who is sort of the alpha male out of the brothers, and he spends a big part of the narrative lording over his brother and also mentally terrifying his new sister-in-law, played by Kirsten Dunst. So that is the premise of The Power of the Dog. Oh, also Kirsten Dunst, her aforementioned son is played by Cody Smith McPhee, who is also good in a classic Western, I think, called Slow West. If I recall, Bruce loves that movie as well. Cody Smith McPhee plays Kirsten Dunst's son, and Cody is Peter Gordon. Peter Gordon eventually ends up having an interesting friendship or relationship with Phil Burbank, the menacing co-ranch owner played by Benedict Cumberbatch. The movie is receiving a ton of critical acclaim. A lot of people are saying it might win the Oscar. It's won a ton of awards. Benedict Cumberbatch might be in line for winning an Oscar as well, or at least being nominated for an Oscar as well as Cody Smith McPhee. Let us start off with Bruce Perky. You were the first one to have seen The Power of the Dog. Did this movie have power, or do you feel that power is completely overrated?
I think it's definitely overrated for me. I think it's a mild recommend. I give it 3 stars because there's a ton of talent. There's a ton of skill. It's unambiguously a super well-made movie. My big problem with it really is just it's like the opposite to me. It's the opposite of Drive My Car. This is a movie that pretends to be a really deep character study, but really it's kind of a pulpy, campy movie in a lot of ways. But it presents it in this very fancy, like, look at me, we are high level character building here. This is Oscar stuff. So I think it's really pretending to be something it's not, and it's trying to get credit for doing that. But I think the characters are kind of paper thin. I think the story is kind of ludicrous. Now, if this were presented as a pulpy noir movie, I could totally enjoy it because it would be like, this is what I am. We're going to do it. We're going to have a good time. So it's okay, but and the Greenwood, I did not like the Greenwood score at all in this movie.
Johnny Greenwood, yeah.
Oh yeah, it was really grated on my nerves. And some things in here just didn't make any sense. Like Jesse Plemons' character, like what was his? I have no idea what his motivation is.
What was his deal?
And he just like walks away for probably half of this movie. Comes back eventually, sorta. There's a lot of things, if you dig even a tenth of an inch below the surface, you really don't understand how these things happen or why they happen. You can pretend to understand why they happen. You can guess why they happen, but the movie does not tell you why they happen. So,
Movie's directed and written by Jane Campion. It's based on the novel by Thomas Savage. Bruce, that's a generous 3 stars from you. I'm thinking on the mild recommend because of its filmmaking prowess, right? As far as the production.
yeah,
and
the
whatnot.
filmmaking prowess, the acting is undeniably good. I think it's really the script. It's the script here. The directing is great. It's the script. The script is pretending to be something it's not. If this was like a pulpy movie with the same plot but done in a more of a pulpy fashion, this could be a 4 to 5 star movie.
Yeah, this movie was a 5-star for me. The fact that it goes back to tone regarding Don't Look Up, regarding The Power of the Dog, the atmospheric long spaces. It might have been very oppressive or pretentious to Bruce. For me, it swept me away. This is a very sociopathic type of film. I am a sociopath myself, and I love it. I love everything that goes on in this movie. And I saw this movie a couple of weeks ago. I've gone back to watch many scenes over and over again. This is a movie that's very hypnotic, mesmerizing for me. And there are certain scenes I don't want to give away the scenes I watch. But it's very, very, very interesting performances. And to Bruce's point, it's a little bit of a puzzle box of a movie. And if you don't go beneath that 1/10 of an inch, I'm not saying you can do that, Bruce, but there's going to be a lot of people who will be watching this narrative and saying, what's going on here? And, oh, you want me to put that together with this? Okay, F you. So there are people who are really not all about The Power of the Dog. Bruce gives it 3 stars. I give it 5 stars. My number 2 film of the year currently. Eric Holmes, you saw it recently. Where do you lie on this?
Well, first of all, The Power of the Dog is strong here because they're trying to scratch through the door. But
you want to let the dog in?
Yeah, let me grab him real quick. Otherwise,
Okay.
we'll just keep scratching.
Okay.
A dog during the review of Power of the Dog. That makes
Make
sense.
sure you don't give that dog rawhide. So,
All right, doors
All right.
cracked so they can come and go as they please.
got it.
Good one, Bambino. Now, if you start barking, I'm gonna pull your teeth out.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's dog torture.
We're an animal-loving podcast. Peter, please. That's a joke. That's a joke. Yes.
Zing. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
not gonna pull their teeth out. They're too cute.
Okay.
But oh Jesus.
Oh, that was me, and that was a private moment. Sorry, folks.
The Power of the Dog.
Right? Actually,
I just realized Frankie.
in my
put
case,
a
the power of
coat-
the Chihuahua.
Frankie
She was
put a
what?
coat on shorts.
Oh, wow, nice, very cute, very
God.
cute.
All
Oh,
right.
so hopefully,
anywho.
because you're a dog lover, hopefully this movie appealed to you, even though there's really no dog in The Power of the Dog.
Well, maybe it did, and maybe it didn't. But you shat on a movie I like, so let me return the favor.
Oh no!
Oh, here it comes.
No, just kidding. I'm actually that petty, but not towards you guys because I love you too much. Yeah, Power of the Dog. It felt like what's the movie with De Niro and DiCaprio? Boy's Life or This Boy's Life?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
It,
This
it,
Boy's Life.
It felt kind of something like that, but like set in the West, like cowboys, a Western version of that.
Right, underplayed. It's an underplayed narrative, right?
Yeah,
Very
it's just a
underplayed.
slice of life character piece. And a lot of that lives and dies on how interesting or how much you can get into the characters. When I saw it, it was kind of late at night, so I probably wasn't as engaged as I probably should have been. I think if I saw this earlier, or like if I wasn't trying to cram it in before the podcast, I think maybe I would have taken to this a lot more. That said, there's some great performances. Jesse Plemons' character, I'm kind of with Bruce on there. I wasn't quite sure what he was doing there. Although I think a lot of that has to do with the back and forth between him and Doctor Strange. And sorry, I forget Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Hey, you do superhero movies, that'll happen.
That'll happen, yeah.
There were some aspects of this movie that kind of I didn't quite get.
Which part didn't you get?
I don't know. Okay, so there's a reveal that Cody Smith McPhee finds a thing, and then that reveals something about Benedict Cumberbatch's character.
Right.
And then so I thought that was kind of neat. I kind of get that part of the character. Like there was some really cool stuff in this. but like trying to watch this as like a narrative piece, I think is tough because it doesn't feel like there's a real story, like A to B story. It's just kind of like a slice of life are. It's just here's some characters and things happen to these characters within this amount of time, and then you're either in or you're not. At the time I wasn't that into it, but I think that this is kind of like, but like when I saw This Boy's Life, I could have watched that at 10 o'clock at night wanting to go to sleep, and maybe I hate that movie. I didn't. I watched that, probably in the daytime, and I was jazzed for it, waiting for it, and I love that movie. So this is kind of this is a tough one to give a star rating for. I'd probably go with Bruce and do the 3 stars as well.
Fair.
Because I think depending on how you go into this movie is probably going to paint how well you like it. If you go into this movie under the best circumstances, this is going to be like, oh, yes, I'm with everyone. I love Power of the Dog. If you go into this trying to cram it for a podcast, you might go, fuck this movie. I hate it. But I think 3 stars is much like Drive My Car. It's one of those movies. You're going to fall on one side or another. So it's the 3 star, I think, works best for this.
So you're giving it a 3 stars, Eric. What worked for you with this movie? With Bruce, it was the overall, just the craftsmanship of the movie. Is that what drew you?
I like the acting, and I like the character interactions. What didn't grab me is I didn't understand why the characters. I kind of wish there was a story to hang on the character interactions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I felt like there wasn't anything pushing forward. It was just a bunch of things happening. Like here's the characters, and then here's a bunch of things happening to them for 2.5 hours or however long it is, and then eventually it ends when it feels like it should end. I think if there was like a stronger story to hang the characters on, I think it probably would have worked better for me.
Well, we're going to talk about that after this show is over. We're going to finish our recording this podcast, and we're going to do our 1 scene spoiler alert for Drive My Car. That's going to be after this podcast is finished, and then I'm going to give you, Eric and Bruce, why I think this is just a brilliant movie as far as characterizations. I'll give you a 1-minute explication towards the end regarding the Power of the Dog. Yes, sir.
So that said, let me throw a caveat on my 3 stars. 3 stars. Yeah. Maybe your explanation might bump it up to a 3.5, 4.
I don't think so.
I'm just throwing out the caveat. Maybe a little.
I think I got it, but we'll see. I'm curious to hear what you say too.
Yeah.
Also, I think what you're getting at too, Eric, is kind of what I was getting at too. Is it's almost the opposite of too much exposition. It's almost like it's like negative exposition, like on the characters, like.
Bruce,
why are they doing stuff?
Bruce, no more exposition for you for the rest of the podcast, bros. Wait, I can't because this is 5 stars for me, streaming on Netflix. Bruce and Eric give The Power of the Dog 3 stars. Again, tell us what you think of The Power of the Dog. Really long movie, 3 stars. At least both of you give it a mild recommend. But this is one of my favorites of the year. We can't cut exposition out of Bruce's thing because it's a podcast. Because Bruce has a couple of really interesting recommendations that he's going to talk about on this here show. What did you see? One of them is that we talked about Melanie Linsky being a national treasure. Can you talk about another national treasure that you actually watched regarding, I'm excited to watch this movie as well.
Well, if she was from America, Jessie Buckley would be a national treasure, but I think she's from Ireland?
I think so. Credit again goes to Eric Holmes for reviewing Beast several weeks ago,
yes.
Which stars Jessie Buckley, and now continue the thread, Bruce.
Wild Rose. And this is one of those things where I'll apologize if I'm crediting the wrong person. On our cinematics group, I believe it was Chad Wilfong threw out one of those free movie pass things for the digital movie they have on Anywhere Movies or whatever, Movies Anywhere.
Movies Anywhere, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, we just talked about Beast. And I know Jessie Buckley is in Wild Rose, and I've heard that's a good movie. I've never seen it. So I hopped on that. And I watched Wild Rose from 2019.
By the way, I was about to grab that code. You got me first.
But you've seen it, right?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it? Okay.
No, but I'm excited to hear your review.
This is available on Hulu as well. I didn't even look. So it inspired me just by having it pop up there. It's so funny. It's been on Hulu this whole time, and I didn't watch it. So you guys. You can go watch it on Hulu. Directed by Tom Harper. Jessie Buckley plays Rose Lynn. Now, this is not what I thought it was going to be to some degree. So I knew it was about her being wanting to become a country singer, right? So I assumed she's playing American, somewhere trying to make it. She's not. It starts out with her getting out of prison in Glasgow. She is from Glasgow, Scotland, and her character gets out of prison, and everyone's like, "Go get him," because she's been dreaming to be a country star forever. In fact, she plays at the Grand Ole Opry of Glasgow, which apparently is a thing. But the thing is, this is a story about her just being a general fuck up. Like, she is a terrible mom. She fails at everything. She got in prison because she threw a bag of heroin over the prison walls to get it to somebody. So she's not very...
As you do.
So she's getting out, and of course, it starts out with her like, you're going to get your job, get your brain right, and maybe you can someday go to Nashville. That's her dream, of course. But right now, you just have to work and take care of your kids. She gets a job being a cleaning person at a richer family's house. And it all it's just a really amazing character drama about her and her dream to make it big. And in a really interesting way, though. It's not this plucky person going against all the odds to make it. It's more of a character who is a fuck up. And is this really what she should be doing? Now, the other amazing part of this is, and I didn't know this going into it either, is that Jessie Buckley is doing all of it. She's singing all this stuff.
Is she good?
She's really good. And afterwards, I went on YouTube and I found tons of footage of her from around this time was being made, playing in Nashville and playing at all these places with these real old-timer Nashville dudes, singing these songs. And it's pretty fucking great. If you didn't like her before this, which I find hard to believe, but if you didn't really understand what level she can go to, this will just show you like, oh my gosh, she can do everything, and I'm really mad at her for being so good at all these things at the same time. It's a really, really good movie. This is one of those movies that you will watch and go like, I don't know why I didn't know about this movie. It's really good.
4 stars?
I think I gave it 4. I think I gave it 4 or 4.5. It's right in that range. It's really good, really satisfying. Yeah, it's good. It's great.
So Wild Rose, do you guys, Eric, Bruce, do you know the story behind that song? I'm looking right now on IndieWire. There's a song, Bruce, that I don't know about called Glasgow. I guess that's a title song in the movie that Jessie Buckley sings. Do you know the history of Glasgow? This is pretty interesting. Do you have any idea? No.
It's in Russia?
I think it's in Poland or Ireland.
Maybe.
Where's Glasgow?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Scotland.
Yeah,
Geography is not my strong suit.
hey, Eric.
Nor is
you
math
and I,
or science.
Look.
or English.
Where's it, Bruce?
Scotland.
Scotland.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, Eric, you and I are a bunch of idiots. What do you think on that?
That's not surprising.
Not
it's surprising that you're an idiot. I don't think you're an idiot. For me,
yeah, I think I'm pretty much. Thank you, Bruce. We're not going to cut that because now we're going to know. Now the listeners will know to only trust Bruce Perky.
Maybe we'll hang out in Paris, Texas, in Europe, and talk about this.
Very, very good. Love it. Wim Wenders reference Glasgow. Mary Steenburgen. Back in 2009, she had a surgery. As she leaves the surgery, as she's recovering for several months, she could not act. She could not remember her lines. As soon as she came out of the surgery, the one thing that she was in her brain was she was actually thinking and being obsessed with music and music notes. For months on end, she would only hear music and music notes, and it really impeded her work as an actress. So cut to years later, when the director was looking to tie a movie together, he eventually found the song Glasgow, and that was written by Mary Steenburgen, who was actually penned that country song while she was in the midst of this obsession with music due to the repercussions of her surgery.
Wow.
Really? Yeah, that is the story behind Glasgow. Yep. So you never know what'll happen, right? So what's your other recommend?
My other recommend?
Yes. Yeah, a buddy of yours, both you and Eric love his stuff. So
Eric O. He did the Oscar-nominated short this year, Opera, which we talked about, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Six months ago.
Short.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been watching him because I follow him, and he's been going to all these festivals and stuff. And he has ties with Pixar and everything. And he has been promoting his newest short, which is called Namoo. And I think it's on the short list for the Oscars this year. I think he just got shortlisted. And it dropped. If you want to watch it, it is available in a weirdest place. It's available on Oculus Quest if you have an Oculus Quest VR device.
I do not. Do you, Bruce?
We do. My kid does.
Cool.
So I scrambled over there to get it. I think that this guy is doing some really interesting and amazing animation work, and I know that he's tied in with that industry he's done, help with the animation on Pixar work. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a feature pretty soon because he's doing some really intricate, interesting stuff. Now, this is, if you watch it on the Oculus Quest, or any VR device, this is the way to watch it because essentially it's similar in some aspects to the opening of Up, where you're following a person's life from childhood to death, and it's all in this scene around this tree, and the scene around the tree changes and things go into the tree and out of the tree as it happens. I'm not going to describe the whole thing, but what makes it incredibly interesting is he's created it in a three-dimensional environment so that you are essentially sitting in the middle of a Pixar scene when you have the Oculus Quest on. So you are actually three-dimensionally in this space with this animated short. It's pretty fucking great.
Wow. Sweet. So that's Namoo, available on the Oculus VR.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because I was just talking with my brother about this. We were talking about VR. I'm old and out of touch, and as I am, I assume there might be one or two people listening to us that also are out of touch. How does the VR work? Is that a game system you have to buy, or is that like a controller that you plug into a PlayStation or a Xbox, or
so I think
what have you?
Both can be the case, but the Oculus Quest is so it's basically like a goggle you put over your head, right? It totally covers your eyes. Kind of looks like half a motorcycle helmet or something, right? But you can't see anything outside of it. It has speakers attached to it to give you the three-dimensional sound. And then you have two controllers on your hands, almost similar to like when you had the old Wii controllers, kind of a version of that.
Yeah.
So, and when you're wearing it, you can see your hands virtually in the space. Like you can see them move, and they might change to something else. You might be holding a lightsaber. You might be holding a gun if you're doing like some other kind of game. But in this case, so what'll happen is when you have this three-dimensional thing on your head, and that's its own game system. You can download the games.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
If I have nothing, I buy that Oculus system. That's everything I need. Like I can download games onto it.
You can download games onto it. It is also connected in, to the either terrible or great, depending on how you look at it. After our recent discussion, Facebook. So all the metaverse crap is going to pop into there too. But weird things you can do, like. It's got actual games, but it's got other things in there where you can just go like, I'm going to ride a roller coaster. And if someone's made a VR of that roller coaster ride, you can ride that roller coaster. Or for example, I was in a shark cage being surrounded by sharks. So it's pretty interesting.
No, I will not play that one.
Yeah, it's pretty immersive, you think? Oculus?
It is. When it's done right, it's really immersive. And this just goes to show that with animation especially, I could see the next level of Pixar kind of stuff being something like this, because as I'm watching it, I want to watch it again because you look in different areas, right? You can look all around you. So you can look to the right and watch this part of the thing changing and miss the part that's happening to the left of you. Or when a certain thing is happening, you can turn all the way around 360 degrees and see stuff. So it's pretty interesting.
Okay, so very cool. That's from a short by Eric O, and it's available on the Oculus Quest Rift, and the short is called Namoo. And O is the director behind the wonderful short opera, which both Bruce and Eric gave high praise to. So that is Bruce Perky's recommendations for this week. Eric has a couple of recommendations this week, starting off with a movie headlined by Neo and Trinity. I believe those are the names. The Matrix Resurrections. It's getting its share of mixed reviews. Eric, where do you land on this movie? I was reading a review saying this is sort of like a parody of sequels. It was a waste. Some people say this movie is a waste of time, a disappointing version, or maybe not.
Well, it definitely wasn't a waste of time. It's probably, I would say it's probably the best Matrix sequel. Not that that's a high bar to clear. But one of the cool things about the Matrix, the original, is that it had a really cool idea. You know, it comes out, it's like, what is the Matrix? That was advertising. What is the Matrix? Find out what the Matrix is on blah, 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 whatever year it came out in 99. And then it's like, okay, I saw Johnny Mnemonic. I know what this is all about. And I watched the Matrix, and I'm like, oh shit, what if we are living in the Matrix, man? So it's like, it was like all my worst being high fears realized in a movie. And so that movie was mind blowing. So when they did the Matrix 2 and Matrix 3, it was just kind of exploring that world more without exploring any ideas. The thing that made the first Matrix great was the really great idea that it had, the great concept it had. And the world is cool, but that's not what blew your mind. That's not what you're there for. And so I think the Matrix 2 and 3 was a misstep because it was almost like they didn't know. It's almost like the Wachowskis didn't know what was great about their first movie to begin with. They took the wrong lessons from it. And with this one, I think, well, Lana Wachowski anyway, Lily, I think is the other one, is not back for this. But Lana Wachowski seems to have some ideas. They still lean heavy on the action, which I think this new one works better if you just get rid of that. But you kind of can't because Matrix is already known as an action movie. You have to have the action scenes. I think this movie works best when, I mean, the movie starts off with Neo, Keanu Reeves' character, and he kind of sort of remembers aspects of the previous Matrix movies, but he thinks he's going insane. He has his psychologist, one of the two, feeding him blue pills, and he's just totally bought into the idea that, whoa, I'm like freaking out. I'm crazy, right? And they just keep feeding him blue pills, but he keeps having flashes of what's going on. And as you're watching this, the way they set up is, at least when I'm watching, I'm like, holy shit, did those Matrix movies happen? Like maybe that was like the fact that I'm even questioning that is a pretty cool idea. And then there's other ideas of like non-binary, because Lana and Lily are trans, so there's a lot of that comes through. It's almost, it's pretty explicit a lot of the times. And there's some of that kind of went over my head. Like I saw what they were doing, but I didn't quite fully grasp it. Probably because I'm not trans, so I think aspects of that might speak to other people better than it would to me, and that's fine. It's, as we said with other movies, sometimes things aren't for me, and that's fine. And that was a storyline that I didn't quite grasp onto, but I appreciated them having that in there. And actually a lot of that works really well with the whole idea of just binary code, stuff like that. Like a lot of the ideas of being trans just fits in perfect with the idea of computers, because the what's the word, the concept and the themes just kind of almost like the fact that they put them together. I was watching and go, oh, of course they did that. It's so simple once you see someone do it. I think this movie's biggest drawbacks is the action. And the action scenes are cool, but I would have liked to see them kind of lean more into the concepts of what the Matrix Resurrections has. And there's a after credits sequence. It's stupid. But it's stupid, but it sets up a hell of a sequel if they ever go with it. And it's I don't want to give it away, but the after credits sequence is, look, don't get it twisted. After credits sequence is fucking stupid, but if they did that sequel, 5 stars. That's a 6-star.
5-star, 6-star movie. Okay, so
the Matrix Resurrections, as it is, there's some stuff that really worked really well in this, and then there's other stuff that just kind of I'm neither here nor there about. This is like we said, this is that perfect 3-star movies. But this isn't like a 3-star movie. Like some people are gonna love it, some people are gonna hate it. This is like right down the middle. Like it does stuff really good, and it just whiffs it on other parts. And
it's like good but not great, basically.
Yeah, and I think it could have been great if they it literally just cut out all the action stuff and focus in on the ideas that they were going for. This could have been something else. Also, like the rules of the Matrix are kind of like the powers that they have, and this was a problem with the first Matrix. Like I love the first Matrix, and that even had power. Like Neo comes in with the powers. I'm like, how does that work? Fuck it, I don't care.
The rules of the world.
Yeah, the rules on the world on this don't quite make sense, but I just kind of let that go because if the first one's the bar to clear and that one didn't even the rules were confusing, then I'm just gonna kind of let it go for the rest of it. But yeah, I would say it's worth checking out. This could have been great. As it is, it's pretty decent, but definitely better than the sequels. Doesn't quite reach the height of the original, but they tried for something. And I do appreciate that.
Okay, so that is The Matrix Resurrections. It's currently streaming on HBO Max. Bruce, are you going to watch this or not?
I don't have HBO Max, so I have to go to the theater. I'm considering it. It sounds kind of interesting. It's one of those things where if I have a day and I'm just it strikes me, I'll probably go check it out. Otherwise, I might wait.
Cool. Okay, Eric, you have one more recommendation. What is it? Pick one of the two.
Oh, jeez. I don't remember what my two were.
Jules Dassin or Naked City or Christmas Vacation?
Let's save Naked City. Going on pretty quick. And the other movie I saw was a Christmas staple, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Okay, cool. What makes it a Christmas staple in your house?
Because it's funny. It's stupid and it's funny. I mean, there's the fact that Clark Griswold's, greasing up the bottom of his sled and 1, 2, 3, Uncle Eddie's, the shitter is full. This is the plot's just thin enough to hang jokes on, and I appreciate it. What can you say about Christmas Vacation?
I'm going to tell you something about Christmas Vacation. Okay,
all right.
It's directed by Jeremiah S. Chechik. It was released in 1989. I remember, and Eric, you can chime in on this. I remember watching this, and the reason why I was watching this, I actually watched it because I was interviewing Chechik for another movie he did. I believe it was Benny and June. So I remember driving up to his beautiful home up in the Santa Monica Mountains, and I was just a college kid. I'm thinking, man, this guy has a life. One day I got to be a director so I can live high in the Santa Monica Mountains in this beautiful home. And I never did. I became a podcaster, and I lived with my mom, so that never worked out. But anyways, back in '93, I interviewed him for Benny and June. He directed that movie, which I really enjoyed. Okay, and then a couple years later, he did this remake of the movie Diabolique. Go see the original, not his version. But anyways, I was doing research on his stuff, so I caught up with Christmas Vacation when I was a college student. And the one thing that I said to myself when I watched it, I believe probably on VHS, I thought, here's a movie that I missed out on 1989, and I felt like back then in 93 that it was so underrated and so very, very funny.
Kind of like Don't Look Up.
Kind of like Don't Look Up. Sorry, that's something in my throat. Yeah. So, did you feel this movie is underrated, or has it been has it always been a classic anyway?
This is one of those. There's a lot of movies like this with our family where the dumb comedies, like the Billy Madisons, the Tommy Boys, like all the movies that when they came out, the critics shit on them. Don't Look Up is another example, where critics just shit on them when they came out. Very but cool. we didn't listen to just critics because they're like the only thing that was on was Siskel and Ebert, and we didn't know when it was playing, so we didn't watch a lot of that. We just watched a movie and we thought it was funny, and then we'd rent it on VHS or buy it on DVD later, and then just watch the same parts over and over again, almost to the part where we had the movie memorized. And we'd see a funny part, Cousin Eddie do something, rewind it, and like it's one of those, like, the movie is an hour and a half, but it takes us 6 hours to watch it because we're constantly rewinding. This is one of those movies for us, and I think it's a movie like that for a lot of people.
So you guys have the DVD of it, and you put in the DVD almost every year, and then you go back and forth on it?
Well,
Or
this
Blu-ray
one
or
I think we watched
streaming?
I think it was on like Netflix or something. Probably HBO Max. It was on one of the streaming things. I can't remember. Probably all of them, I imagine. Again, what can you say about Christmas Vacation? I think most people have seen it, and most people have an opinion of it. I think most people have a pretty good opinion on it. You know, it's not going to win awards, but it'll win your heart.
I remember actually that was the first time I knew who Julie Louis-Dreyfus was, and I remember her being really funny in that movie as well. I don't know if that still recalls. I recall. Bruce, are you a fan of this movie? Have you seen Christmas Vacation?
I am. Yeah, it is. It's good. I feel like, the reason I think it originally didn't get liked as much was because the first Vacation was so popular, and the second one really is not very good. And I think it kind of spoiled everybody for the third one. They were like, really? They're going back again? So I think it had a lag time where everyone finally just said, oh, I'll give it a try. And then when they actually watched it, they're like, oh, this is good like the first one, And now everyone loves it. So, yeah.
One thing they did strike me about it watching this time, that I never really picked up before, and it's always been there. I just never picked it up. But Uncle Eddie's daughter, Clark Griswold, they make a joke of it, but Clark kind of talks to the daughter, and he really gets an insight on how, I guess, abuse would probably be the right word for it, but how abused those children are. Certainly, they're put in a position that they can't help. And he really feels bad for him. It's like small moments with him and her. And then after that scene, you get like little nuggets here and there. And as funny as Cousin Eddie is, I was kind of watching this and, I don't have kids of my own, but just living with my nieces and nephews. I was like, wow, that uncle or Cousin Eddie's kind of a piece of shit. And those kids are like literally living in squalor. And so it's got a what's his name? The writer
of the movie.
Yes.
John Hughes.
Jesus, how the fuck did I forget his
No
name?
worries.
But anyway, John Hughes has a way of putting moments like that in there, even if they're very hidden. I mean, the most famous example I can think of is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. John Candy, the "I Like Me" scene. He has a way of instilling heart in a lot of movies like this. Like, they're dumb fun, but then they have heart, and I think that's why they last.
Yeah, Planes, Trains, Automobiles, classic. Definitely have to rewatch Christmas Vacation sooner than later. You can watch Christmas Vacation, obviously Blu-ray, DVD. I'm sure it's available. You can rent it on so many different services. You can rent it on Apple TV and YouTube as well. But for streaming, it's available on HBO Max. Like Eric said, a whole bunch of other streaming services. AMC Plus is one of them as well. If you have DirecTV, that's good as well. But it's all over the place for Christmas Vacation. A Christmas recommendation from Eric Holmes and his family. Another recommendation is, I believe, Eric, did someone from your family recommend this? Bruce, what's this? Dean Koontz? No, it was a Dean Koontz wallet watch last week. This is a What's in the Box movie. But you know what? Before we do that, I'm going to actually take it upon myself for the happy holidays, not to throw it to you, Eric. I'm going to be selfish and throw it to myself and say, Pete, please, why don't you drop that Christmas beat?
Who's in the box? What's in the box? You lie! No! What's in the fucking box?
All right, we're back.
Pete, drop that wallet watch.
Very good. Pete, drop that Dean Koontz wallet watch. Pete, did you see this movie called Serendipity? More importantly, Bruce, Serendipity. What is this?
Serendipity.
Yeah.
What is it? We all watched it. We all know what it is.
I mean, no. Is this a movie that just right up your alley? It's kind of fits your aesthetic?
I had heard of it. I'd never seen it before. Rom-coms generally aren't my thing.
What?
This is, yeah, I know, right? Amazing.
Wait. Don't you like star-crossed lovers or loves that are meant to happen?
Maybe not.
Okay, good.
What is this? 2001, directed by Peter Chelsom. It's available like everywhere, like Hulu, Netflix, Pluto. If you look at it, it's like streaming like almost everywhere for free. So you can watch this movie unless you just don't have any streaming service whatsoever.
A lot of people love this movie, by the way. It has grown in favor over the years. So.
Yep. John Cusack, Kate Beckinsale, Jeremy Piven, Eugene Levy, Molly Shannon, bunch of faces that you will recognize. And as I was watching this, I was thinking to myself, this is like...
What?
This is the Fast and Furious of romance movies. Now, let me explain this.
Wait, that's a good thing, right? I hope that's a good thing.
So the way I look at it is Fast and Furious knows what it is. It does every trope and it does it like times 10. And it gives you everything extra, extra, extra. And if you release yourself to it, you're going to have a hell of a good time most of the time. And this is the romance movie version of that. Okay, it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous right out of the gate. It is impeccably shot. It has great, appealing actors. Every trope in the book. And if you release yourself to it, you're going to have a hell of a fun time with this movie. That's what I would say. I enjoyed myself throughout, despite my best intentions. I was telling my wife as it started, I was telling her all the little events at the beginning. I mean, I guess we should say what it starts. So it starts with a sociopath named, I don't know what her name is, but Kate Beckinsale is a crazy person. She has this meet cute with this dude. They both have boyfriends and girlfriends because they want to grab the same pair of gloves. And she's like, well, I know we have this great spark, but if you really want to know me, write your name on this piece of money, this $5 bill, and I'm going to put it in circulation. If it comes back to me, we're meant to be. He's like, wait, that's not fair. I should get to do something. So she says, okay, right, I'll write my stuff in this book, and we'll take it and get it to a used bookstore, and you have to find that. And that's
And
what
by the way, that book is Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Love in the Time of Cholera. I guess one of the all-time famous romantic novels. I don't know if either of you guys have read it. This is one of the, it's a movie about fated love, no matter what. So, I didn't see the symbolism there. I don't know.
And everything about this is like calculated and ridiculous, and it's a ton of fun. I loved it. It was really good.
How many stars you giving this one?
4 stars.
Oof, you're giving Serendipity 4 stars.
I am. Yes.
So, my God. So my 4 stars for Serendipity. Really enjoy this movie. Here's the thing. What's interesting about Serendipity is John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale. They have a ton of chemistry. We're going to get to you in a second, Eric. Right from the get-go. So the first act, you're getting to know them as a couple. You go, oh, this is really cool. The rest of the movie centers on about you separate the 2 stars in the film. So actually, even though it follows the same tropes and it is the Fast and Furious of rom-coms, it does something that's very, very tough. It separates the 2 stars away from each other. They're very charismatic, and you have to actually, maybe you're believing, maybe they might come together towards the final moments of the third act, but there's all of that whole meat between the end of the first act through all of the second act where they're just 2 separate stories. And the only way those separate stories are going to work, one of the only ways, is to make sure that those stories are interesting. And what makes that story, that meat in the middle, interesting are the supporting players played by Molly Shannon, played by Jeremy Piven. Jeremy Piven plays John Cusack's best friend. In real life, they are very, very close friends. Also, Bridget Moynihan plays the current girlfriend, the fiancée of John Cusack's character. So many, and like you said, you mentioned Eugene Levy. So many interesting.
Great scene.
And of course, you forget, I believe, John Corbett playing this Yanni type.
This Yanni flute.
Yanni type new age musician who is the boyfriend of Kate Beckinsale's character. So the whole movie, even though it seems very, very tropey, there is that challenge of what happens if you put the 2 most charismatic people away from each other for most of the movie, and it still works. So credit goes to Serendipity. I thought a sneakily ambitious film, and they have a really nice Nick Drake song that I love that plays in a very pivotal moment in the movie. So really got to me as well. I actually saw this after we recorded our episode last week. I go, oh, yeah, it's playing on HBO Max. I'll watch it. So I ended up watching the entire movie. Eric Holmes, you have the most experience with Serendipity. I'm giving it 4 stars. Bruce gives it 4 stars. What do you give Serendipity? Yes. Why have you liked it all these years?
This movie's really special to me because I haven't seen him in a long time, but my friend Jason Grodelution back in Omaha, we both love John Cusack. And, we're thinking of it's like, oh, we should write a movie. Yeah, let's write it. What we're going to do. It's like, you know what? Like, we could do like a Blood and Guts, but fuck it, let's write a rom-com. just and we started writing the rom-com, and the idea we had was, oh, wouldn't it be cool if you had the two main characters, they never meet each other? So like the audience builds a relationship with the two. The audience wants the two of them to come together, but they never meet until the very end. And wouldn't that be a cool movie? And then so we started writing that, obviously pretty poorly, because neither one of it, like I hadn't written much, and I don't think he's written much at that point. But we were hanging out at Denny's and we had fun with it, and we're coming up with like all these scenes and how the story's going to play out. And hey, look, the new John Cusack movie's coming out. Let's go watch that. That'll spark our brains and get us hyped to write some more. And so we go and watch Serendipity, and we leave going, well, we don't have to write anymore. They made our movie for us. And so and we weren't angry about it. I think we were kind of, it was almost kind of relieving. Like, oh, wow. That thing we were trying to get, like, we didn't get to make it. But that idea we had, like, it's almost like, it was almost serendipitous, you might say. That we were trying to come up with this movie, and life just made that movie for us. And every time
you saw it together in the theaters for the first,
and so every time I watch that movie, I think of my friend Jason Grolution, and that the fact that we're trying to basically write Serendipity without knowing that we were writing Serendipity. And so this movie always held. This movie was always really special to me, and I think as a rom-com, it works really well. I would give this movie 5 stars, but that's a complete personal thing for me.
Yeah. It's always personal. It's always personal. Our star ratings. So.
And I'm glad that Bruce picked this one out of the box for.
Yeah, that's good.
Captain.
Good timing, right?
Captain Kangaroo's meat wall.
Do you still keep in touch with your buddy? Does he still like to write? Does he still like John Cusack?
I don't know. I haven't like actually seen him in person in a long time. I don't see many people in Omaha. See him post stuff on Facebook once in a while. It's just one of those things. Like, the cool thing about social media is like you get to kind of peek at what people are doing. But yeah, it is what it is. But I don't think he's listening to this. But Jason, if you're listening to this, I still love you.
Oh man, I wanted a little bit of a happier ending there. Thanks, Eric, for nothing on that. You know what you got to do, Eric? Bruce, can you go to Amazon.com right now, order Love in Time of Cholera, send it to Eric, have Eric sign it, and then just throw it, mail it to an Omaha used bookstore. And Eric, just say, hey, Jason, still waiting for our script. Let's do another script together. Serendipity 2, and I have an idea. Serendipity 2 stars John Cusack and Kate Beckinsale, same characters. This story is the flip side. The whole movie, all they want to do is stay away from each other, but fate always has them returning. Yeah. All in different circumstances. So, what do you think, Bruce?
We could do that. Yes, that would be good.
Okay, we could do that. So, Eric, you're gonna have Love in the Time of Cholera ordered from Bruce Perky. The reason why it's ordered because I want Bruce to foot the bill. I'm very cheap, and you can actually sign the message to Jason. We gotta write Serendipity 2, send it over to an Omaha used bookstore. Maybe one of these days, years later, when you're a very successful filmmaker, he might give you a call. Hey, I got the Cholera book. Right?
We'll write Serendipity 2.
Serendipity 2. Very, very good. So that is it. That is our final episode of... It's not our final... I always do this every single week. It's not a bit.
The bit.
I always forget. What's in the
right.
bleeping box again.
What's in the box? What's in the Walker box? What's in the box?
BruceBerkey@gmail.com. Email him if you have any movie recommendations for him.
This is a recommendation from Mark Crimmins. I don't think have we ever had one from Mark Crimmins on here before? I don't think
love
so.
Mark Crimmins now.
Oh, by the way, probably in the next week or so, I'm going to post the entire list from the last year of What's in the Box movies, just so you can see all the things we've watched.
Very, very cool.
The Birthday Party by William Friedkin.
Oh, Mark Crimmins. We love Mark Crimmins. The Birthday Party by William Friedkin. He probably listened to our first pod. Wow, that's such a full circle thing. Mark Crimmins, the philosophical cinephile. I'm sure the reason why he mentioned The Birthday Party is why, Eric?
Because William Friedkin's awesome.
Okay, you're the guy who does not remember anniversaries. Well, this is a celebration of our first episode, which was a deep dive into the works of William Friedkin. Obviously, Eric Holmes was jesting that. Actually, our first 2 episodes centered on William Friedkin. It'll be great to return to the works of William Friedkin with The Birthday Party. In fact, let's just assume that both Eric and I, and most importantly, Bruce Perky, will be watching The Birthday Party, and we'll be chiming in on whether
That
or
would
not
be a good. That would be a good assumption.
That would be a very, very good assumption. Any final thoughts from you, Eric Holmes? Maybe a final missile to say, hey, go watch Don't Look Up. Don't listen to Greg and Bruce.
You know, maybe you watch Don't Look Up. Maybe you're with Bruce and Greg thinking Don't Look Up. Yeah, that movie, Eric was wrong. That movie sucked, but I mark my words, 10, 15 years from now, everyone will look back on Don't Look Up saying that movie is prophetic and we should have learned the lessons 10, 15 years ago. But better late than never.
Very, very good from Eric Holmes. Very prophetic.
But by then, the comment already hit
ominous.
us, so we're dead.
Okay. Again, another sad ending to our podcast. Eric, coming in with the dark. Can you lead us out with some light, Bruce Perky?
No, I cannot. I am going to lead you out with a quote from Mimi. Mimi just wants to tell you that I told you before, Grandma's in hell forever.
Very cool. With that, we'll see you guys next week. And also stay tuned because we're going to have a quick little 5-10 minute spoilerific situation on Drive My Car. I'm a little bit flustered regarding the Mimi and Hell reference. We'll talk about Drive My Car and a little bit of the ending of The Power of the Dog. Stay tuned if you want to listen to the spoilers in about 5-10 minutes. What is that in reference to? Or is that just is that a hellish reference, Bruce?
It's just a quote from my #1 movie of the year, that's all.
Oh, #1 movie of the year. You're going to hear more about it next week on Find
I
Your
don't
Film.
recall them saying that and Don't Look Up, but I could be wrong.
Oh, very, very good. Well, you know what? We're gonna end with you, Eric. What a way to steal Bruce's thunder. You attention. WHORE. I don't like saying bad words. See you guys next week. All right, guys, we're back with our just quick spoiler section. This will be very, very quick. #1, Drive My Car. At the end of Drive My Car, we have the main character. I believe his name is Yasuki. He did not want to play Uncle Vanya forever because he did not want to essentially. He did not want to deal with the words and the themes of Uncle Vanya, which is about dealing and processing your own grief and realizing you have to stack days upon days upon days. So he was a stage director. Ultimately, due to the tragedy of the young actor playing Uncle Vanya, he ended up being convicted and for actually manslaughter, for actually beating up someone to death. And that actor is gone. So now Yasuki at the end of Uncle Vanya, just by default, has to step in as Uncle Vanya. And it's a very cathartic moment for everybody because he ends up really pulling the role off. Okay. So that is the first end of the movie. And Bruce was talking about different endings in Drive My Car. It actually ends with his driver, Toko Miura, the actress, played, and her character is Misaki. Misaki is at the end, is by herself, and it's not, Yusuke is nowhere to be found. She's driving his red Saab, and she's driving his Saab into a grocery store. And you're thinking, okay, she's by herself. Maybe she's somewhere in Hiroshima, where the movie is set. Maybe she's in Hiroshima and picking up some groceries, but no. Here's a subtle thing. When she goes into the grocery store, the grocery clerk, the cashier, speaks to her in Korean. So you're assuming she might be in Korea. She can't be in Japan or Hiroshima. Why is she speaking Korean? And then it ends with her going back in the car and driving off with the groceries. That's the end of Drive My Car. Bruce or Eric, do you have any interpretations on why they ended it as such?
I did not pick up the different languages, so right away, unless I'm familiar with the language, like if they went from like say Japanese to German or Japanese to Spanish or something like that, I would have picked up on that, but I didn't even pick up on that until you just mentioned it.
I mean, to me, I thought, okay, here's what I saw: is the whole ending is basically about Yasuka and Misaki. Is that I get the name right?
Yeah, Yusuke and Misaki. Yeah, very good.
Being able to, through their friendship and through that final trip up to her hometown, they both basically are giving each other permission to move on at that point. And by the friendship and listening to each other and all the stuff that happens, right? And I just thought that, and that's why he can do the play, finally. And I thought that basically you're not sure why she's there, but the point of her being there with the car and with the dog and all that stuff is that he is so given up the past. He's finally been able to give it up. He's been able to do the play. He doesn't have to have the tape anymore. He doesn't have to keep listening to his wife or girlfriend, whatever, reading the play. And he can give up the car too. It's like someone getting rid of the clothes out of the closet, finally, from someone who's died, is the way I read it. And on top of that, she feels free to kind of go on with her life because she's been living in this kind of stasis, just driving other people around, right? She's been living other people's lives, but she hasn't been living her own life. So I saw it as like, you're seeing her going out and doing something for herself. So apparently she's taken a trip, or she's moved, or she's left the country. She has a dog, which she was connecting with at that party or that dinner. Not that dog necessarily, but she loved the car. So she's actually able to go on with her life. So in that one scene, you're seeing that they both got to go on with their lives and live a new life. That's how I read it.
Well, look, speaking of reading, we don't know the source material. We don't read the works of Haruki Murakami. It's based on his short story. Okay, so obviously you'll get more context regarding the ending of Drive My Car if you do read the short story, I'm assuming. But my read on this, on Drive My Car, is, and I think it was actually added to you, Bruce, the whole name is Drive My Car. It's the process of letting go. The guy is holding on to his car for so long because it brings him memories of his time with his wife, because she's reading lines to him from Uncle Vanya, so he gets to actually connect with her on that long drive. But he's also in his own little fantasy world and his own little shelter. At the end of this, the fact that he was able to process the grief and move on via Uncle Vanya, he gives his car to Misaki, and now she can actually take that car, that Red Saab, and, like you said, lead her own life with the dog that she loved from the dinner. And she also mentioned how much she was moved by the actual play by Uncle Vanya and the words within the play. So you're assuming maybe she was pretty much a very quiet person, but she's actually learned a little bit about how art, how that play, how she's actually growing as a person as well. It's very subtle, but it's really cool that now she's the owner of that car, presumably, and she's moving on with her own life, maybe in Korea or whatnot. Because in the dinner, the Korean, the guy mentioned, the Japanese man, he married his Korean wife, and he got to learn not just the Korean language, but sign language as well. So he was very interested in the culture. So maybe if you're putting two and two together, why did Misaki suddenly learn Korean as well? Maybe she's becoming interested in Korean, the language. Maybe she's interested in the play, but maybe none of that matters. The most important is she, like Yusuke, they are both interested in living their life and not ending it. They both want to keep driving that proverbial car, such as the end of Drive My Car. Yeah.
And don't you think with Misaki, it was like her getting agency? Because a big part of her existence was serving others, and she had been like abused from her mom, but also had this combination of guilt, like incredible guilt for her mom, like not doing anything when her mom was buried in that, thing. And when you see her at the beginning, like she has like almost no personality. She literally will just sit out in the cold and wait to drive people around. And that's all she does.
See, I didn't take that as her servicing other people. I think that's because I do that sometimes. You can come, you want to leave and come back. It's like, nah, just wait here in the car. Because I just like sitting with my own thoughts. And then with the, I'll pass out for a while, and then you wake me up, and then I can drive. It's like, no, I'll drive. Because, when you're driving, or when you're just sitting there by yourself, you can be there in your own thoughts. I kind of read that as her not servicing other people, but she kind of shutting herself off.
Yeah, I agree.
Introspective a little more. But
she definitely hasn't come out of her shell.
Not a bad place to be sometimes.
Yeah. Both are correct. I mean, she's coming out of her shell. The reason why she actually moved to Hiroshima, obviously, is the death of her mother, the tragic death. Both of them believe that they were killers because both of them didn't act accordingly. Right. One was late for the meeting and was more of an ignoring thing, and she didn't maybe move due to inaction. She didn't give herself credit. But to your point, Eric, the way the reason why she moved to Hiroshima was not, it wasn't purpose filled. Her car ran out of gas or it broke down. She
Right.
ended up in the town, no place to go. So what else? What does she do? She does the only thing she knows how to do is drive people around in service of them, and it's part of her job. But now at the end of the movie, she's driving herself. She's taking care of a dog. She's buying groceries, and the road is open before her. Such is the end of Drive. These are all interpretations, and until we read the short story, maybe we won't get a full answer. But it's so cool that we could have so many different interpretations from Drive My Car.
And maybe her driving alone with the dog. Maybe that's a sad ending for some people. It's like
Not to me.
she just gets to live in her head a lonely existence. But I mean, that's kind of like the end of AI, where Haley Joel Osment is just staring at this thing. It's fake. So looking on it, it's like, wow, that's really sad. But for the character, it's like, this is exactly where I want to be. So
Okay, now the power of the dog towards the end. Bruce, did you like the ending? Eric, did all of those, the puzzle box? Did you figure out the puzzle box, like what happened regarding killing him and all that stuff? And
no, in fact, I don't.
Chekhov's
remember that
cow.
ending.
Chekhov's cow is what I call it.
Chekhov's cow.
You mean early on when they go, "Don't go near that cow. It is poisonous. If you touch that cow, it will kill a bunch of things."
Okay, Bruce. Okay, I love that.
No, I mean,
Anthrax is a big part of. Oh, go ahead, Bruce.
I was gonna say this is the pulpy part of it to me. Okay, so he purposely gives the skin to him to make
Phil.
into the rest of the rope because he knows he has a cut and he's going to have his hand in the water and he's going to get anthrax and he's going to die, and that's his ultimate revenge. But this is where the pulpy part comes to me, is that, like, there's no way he could have planned all those things to happen. He couldn't plan for the rabbit to bite him. He couldn't plan for those guys to come and buy all of the other
Dadgummit, the Joker
cowhides.
wanted to get caught.
Yeah, so it's like, it's silly. I'm sorry.
No, I loved it. I loved it. Well, Eric, there's a couple of clues that Peter Gordon, played by Cody Smith-McPhee, all of the marbles might not be right up there for him because he's studying to be a doctor. Okay, you know right from the get-go that he was very gentle initially with the rabbit. It starts off when you realize
kills it.
the first rabbit. Not only does he kill it, he dissects that first rabbit. He's dissecting the rabbit because he's trying to study it. And
I'm thinking of it. Was this a remake of Mice and Men?
well, so so Peter Gordon is dissecting that rabbit. So there's the clue that he's actually not only is he dissecting the rabbit, even though Peter Gordon seems weak to all the ranch hands, he's a lot stronger and smarter than people give him credit for, including Phil Burbank, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. So what happens at throughout the narrative is Peter Gordon's the third act is Peter Gordon's seduction of Phil Burbank into his world. He tries to treat Phil Burbank as a mentor, as a possible, who knows, lover, because Phil Burbank, that's what, when he realizes that Phil has that stash of porn and explicit photographs in his hideaway right near the creek, he realizes, okay, maybe if I play him, maybe if I start moving the chess pieces, and then you have the anthrax with the animal, right, that he finds. So he puts two and two together. He makes rawhide with a little bit of that anthrax thing. And again, to Bruce's point, he never knew that Phil Burbank would actually have a big cut on his hand due to the rabbit. But what happens is he puts two and two together. Peter Gordon uses that rawhide material, soaks it in the water, and then when Phil puts his hand in the water, then he's completely infected. And it's
Bronco Henry.
Peter Gordon. Bronco Henry.
Okay.
Don't laugh. That's supposed to be touching.
Am I wrong? With just a tiny tweak, this could be a very funny comedy.
It could. Yeah, I know. You did a little bit of a comedic. Yeah. Fair. So
Or at the very last shot is him looking out the window. Oh, he has the gloves on, so he won't get sick. And he puts the rope under his bed, his murder weapon. And then he looks out the window and he gives just a little smile because his plan came to fruition and he killed his evil.
See,
yeah.
I think one of the problems with Power of the Dog is, and this worked in There Will Be Blood, but I think it worked better in the screenplay. There's a part where the son, H.W. Plainview, lights the bedroom on fire. The Daniel Plainview's air quote cousin or brother or whatever comes hang out, and his son burns the place down, and they run out and they're like, "Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?" And then the rest of the movie goes on without saying much about it. One that in the script, H.W. Plainview is deaf, and so there's a scene where he can't understand what they're saying, but he sees Daniel Plainview and his air quote brother talking to each other, and he notices body language, so he knows something's up, and he knows that his air quote brother is full of shit, and so he lights the place on fire because this guy's a fraud. At least that's how it comes through in the script. Doesn't come through that way at all in the movie, because a lot of the stuff in the script is stage notes and stuff and character background and stuff that you just don't get unless it's in dialogue or you're showing it. I wonder if I'd be curious to read the script for Power of the Dog, because I wonder if maybe there's some stuff like that where there's character motivations maybe written within the script that they just didn't shoot because you can't shoot stuff like that. That
I think a lot of people
might have kind of bumped it up a notch.
I think a lot of people would have missed the pulp killer sociopath element to the Power of the Dog. A lot of things were missed. And I think it's normal, because I think even our Cinematics Facebook group member, Joseph Bridges, said that in his review, he said, there's going to be parts of this movie, a lot of people, when they watch this movie, they're going to miss a very important part that'll escape a lot of people. So I think some people who, I don't know, some people may not like the movie because it has a little bit too much of a puzzle box. Bruce solved the puzzle anyway, but he still disliked the movie. Gave it a 3-star movie. It's still a mild recommend. But
I wanted it to embrace the pulp, and because it's pretending to be art, but it's really not. It's just fun pulp.
It's total art.
This would be like a Brian De Palma movie if it wanted to be.
I mean, there's a biblical. He reads a biblical passage at the end. The finished rope is under his bed. He just tucks it under his bed.
I wanted to see a Bronco Henry flashback musical sequence.
And the Power of the Dog refers not to Phil Burbank, who lords over the ranch with his supposed power. No, the real dog is Peter Gordon, the person who will kill people at his beck and call with his calculating measure. So that's why I loved the Power of the Dog.
Well, that was another problem I had with this movie. Not enough dogs.
That's right.
Dogs.
It worked.
Like
So,
I
Eric,
don't get the. I know it was like a biblical passage, but I don't get the. I don't understand what it means.
The Power of the Dog?
Yeah,
I think it's. I'm trying to remember if it's referenced in the Bible about. I forgot what the.
It was some Power of the Dog, and I remember they said that, but I'm like I still don't. I don't get the quote was so esoteric and poetic that it's like, I guess if I thought about it, probably means something. But it almost feels like the.
I'm telling you,
like I can write my own scripts. I don't need to write this movie's script for it too.
Did this movie have a little bit of an upscale? So now you're seeing it. Are you seeing it in a different way? The fact that you didn't know.
No,
that,
I like that. I like that there's stuff that I missed on it that I can go back to.
Yeah, he was murdered. Phil Burbank was murdered. He didn't die. He was murdered by the guy he actually was falling in love with. The guy who was falling in love with.
He wanted to be his Bronco Henry.
Yeah.
Oh, can we mention how funny the sequence is when they're? Oh, I'm sorry, it's not funny. Yeah, I think it's funny. The dueling banjo piano scene is one of the most hilarious scenes I've ever seen.
If I ever see Kirsten Dunst in person, I'm gonna make her say, "Can't you play the piano piece for me? Play the piano piece for me right now." So there's so many scenes I love in The Power of the Dog.
And I quoted. I came up with Cumber Banjo. Cumber Banjo is what I call that.
Cumber Banjo, yes, and And I love Cody Smith McPhee, but no rabbits near him, please. No rabbits near him, because he's a rabbit killer.
Honestly, we probably should have just done this spoiler as the regular thing. Like it gives away things, but like now I'm thinking of it. Yeah. I think this would bump at least another half star.
Yeah,
I'm starting to think. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to.
The whole third act is a seduction movie.
I just did not catch a plot in this movie at all. And then I think I get it now. because
Yeah.
it just seemed like a bunch of random things happening, and then like the
fair.
ending. That fuck, I barely even remember the ending. But it was just another thing, and the characters were, if you find them interesting, that's cool. And for some parts I did, other parts I didn't care, but
On a narrative level.
it's kind of opening up the movie for me.
Well, you know what? Another thing that, and don't listen to Bruce, please. Another thing that's
Listen to
very
me, listen to
interesting about the Power of the Dog, okay, which is very subtle. The whole third act is driven by Cody McPhee's character.
Yeah.
And he doesn't show up until towards the end, like over the half of the movie is pretty much almost finished, and he shows up right out of nowhere, and he's the one driving the rest of the narrative because he's the one. I mean, he's the one.
He was towards wasn't that towards the beginning where he was making the flowers, and he was giving them shit about
Right.
Oh, these are real pretty flowers, and
There's that
basically,
castration scene, Bruce. There's like, didn't you
yeah.
like that? That was not pretty. There's a skinny dipping scene, Bruce. Didn't you like that?
I just kept thinking, like, if this was Nicolas Cage instead of Cumberbatch, and it could have been the power of the pig, the power of the pig.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying you, Bruce. You probably are not encouraging Eric to rewatch the Power of the Dog, right?
No, I think he's encouraged.
Yeah.
I think he likes it better.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I do too, because it's
Yeah.
kind of like I think I get it now. Which
Well-
this wouldn't be the first movie that went completely over my head.
Well, my suggestion is watch the third act of The Power of the Dog when Cody Smith McPhee's character is introduced to Benedict Cumberbatch, and just watch that rest of the narrative, and then.
Well, no, because I think what I can get out of it watching it again is kind of because even without knowing all that, I could watch it again and kind of know where Benedict Cumberbatch's anger comes from.
Yeah, that's
Because that when he finds out that he's you got a bunch of gay porn here, you like guys, right? And then that's kind of when their relationship starts. At first he's worried about it, and then he kind of.
The key scene is when the young kid walks very slowly past the whole crowd of guys, and they're all like making fun of him, and then he walks all the way back, and that's when he calls him over and he says like, "Hey," and he starts talking about making the rope. That's the seduction scene, right? Isn't that where he's
Right,
like
exactly.
walking? He's like
No,
he's
but
walking like a bird, like displaying its feathers to him. So
Yeah, and the fact that he was unfazed when people were mocking him, all the other ranch hands were, and the fact that he, Benedict Cumberbatch's character is saying, "Oh, this guy was not fazed. This guy might be a little bit more interesting than I initially thought," and that's when he brings him in slowly but surely. And there's also that wonderful scene where he kills a rabbit, and Phil Burbank is just like, "What just happened? You just snapped his neck like that? What?"
And the scene where here's this comedy again, where Cumberbatch is carrying a giant log, like a giant rod, to show off for him. I'm telling you, man, this could be a really funny comedy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I need to watch
And
it.
pounds it into the ground.
I'm glad you're
This
thinking about
is
it.
gonna be like Sixth Sense. Now that I get it, I'll watch it again and go, "Oh, it's a completely different movie." And
Yeah,
okay, so since we're talking about that,
This is the longest
Kirsten
episode
Dunst.
ever.
I mean, that's what happened. But Kirsten Dunst, so she just became an alcoholic, just
Yes.
seemingly out of nowhere,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
got out of control. And then,
Yes. Yeah.
Is-
She starts hiding it.
what am I missing there?
You're missing that he basically mentally abused her, and he
Okay,
just triggered her.
So I
He
didn't
triggered her.
miss anything then.
He was-
I
yeah,
thought
he-
maybe there was something else going on there.
I mean, and she's coming from a whole, relationship with, her own past, and her son might be involved with that. Peter Gordon, played by Cody Smith McPhee, is such a sociopath. You don't put it past him for who knows, maybe what happens at the end of The Power of the Dog. Does he end up also killing the Jesse Plemons character? Because you realize he has the rope, the noose, the rope under his bed, and he's reading biblical passages. You never know what his next move is, right? You just don't know. So that's why they leave the ending very open-ended.
He found his dad Remember?
Right, he found his dad. So yeah, you're assuming. I think you put two and two together, Eric. Peter Gordon might have actually killed his own father.
Bumped up to a 4-star.
All right, guys. With that, it's a long episode.
No, let's keep talking. Let's see if we can bump it up to 5 stars.
Okay, guys. We will see you later. Tell us what you think of The Power of the Dog, Drive My Car, and all the other films that we covered this week. And thanks again for being a part of our Find Your Film universe. Take care, guys, and Merry Christmas.